He didn't say anything for 3 years, and now he leaves everything to me?
For 3 years, he'd sit alone at table number 4 every morning. He never spoke a word and he never smiled. He'd always order the same breakfast and leave exactly $5 under the napkin. Emily was the only waitress who never rushed him, never judged his silence, and never made him feel unwelcome. Emily was the only waitress who never rushed him, never judged his silence, and never made him feel unwelcome. Then one morning, his chair sat empty. When 6 Navy SEALs walked into her diner carrying a neatly folded flag, Emily's world changed forever. The man she'd thought was just another loner had left her everything. Welcome to the story. Let's uncover what really happened. This little diner sat at the corner of Route 17 and Cedar Street, drawing in construction workers, truck drivers, and night shift folks heading home. Right at 6:30 a.m. every weekday, that man would show up at the front door. The staff just called him the quiet guy at table number 4. Emily Davis had been working the morning shift for 3 years, ever since her husband passed and left her to raise their 2 kids alone. The job at the diner wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, and the early hours let her be home when the kids got out of school. At first, Emily tried to chat with all her regulars. Most folks were happy to talk about the weather, their work, or the local sports teams, but the man at table number 4 was different. He looked to be in his 70s, with silver hair and hands marked by decades of hard work. He walked with a limp, his right leg bothering him, and he always wore a simple gray jacket, no matter the weather. Every morning, his routine was the same. He'd nod at Emily as she approached the table. She'd ask as usual, and he'd nod back. 2 over-easy eggs, wheat toast, and black coffee. He ate methodically, not in a hurry, often gazing out the window at the early morning traffic picking up. The bill was always $8.50, and he always left exactly $13.50 on the table, $8.50 for the meal and a $5 tip, which was generous for such a simple breakfast. But it was the way he left the tip that caught Emily's attention. He'd carefully fold the $5 bill into a perfect square and tuck it under the edge of the napkin, almost like he was hiding it from view. Emily also noticed other little details. He always carried a neatly folded gray handkerchief and placed it on his lap during meals. Once, a strong gust from the open door blew it to the floor, and Emily bent down to pick it up for him. That's when she saw the embroidered initials, J. Carter. From that day on, she thought of him as Mr. Morgan, though she never mentioned the name out loud. There was something in his demeanor that showed he valued his privacy, and Emily respected that. The other waitresses found him odd. "He's such a scary old man," one whispered. "He never says a word, just sits there staring." But Emily saw something different. She saw loneliness, not creepiness. She saw a man coming to the diner not just for a meal, but to share a bit of routine in days that might otherwise feel empty. So she made sure his coffee cup never ran dry. She didn't hover or try to force conversation, but she paid attention. When he nodded in thanks as he left each morning, she'd smile and say, "See you tomorrow, sir." And he'd nod back with a small warmth in his eyes. The other customers hardly noticed him. He was just part of the background, like the coffee machine or the old cash register. But Emily started looking forward to his quiet presence each morning. There was something peaceful about serving someone who never complained, never demanded anything beyond basic courtesy. 3 years of this routine, 3 years of silent mornings, careful tips and respectful nods. Emily had no idea that the quiet man at table number 4 was Captain Henry Morgan, a former Navy SEAL commander. She didn't know about the classified missions, the lives he'd saved, or the decades of service that earned him a chest full of medals he kept in a drawer at home. She only knew he seemed like a kind man who deserved to be treated with kindness. And that simple goodness was about to be repaid in ways she never imagined. On Tuesday morning at 6:30 a.m., Emily was wiping down tables, getting ready for breakfast, when she glanced at table number 4. Empty. She checked the clock. 6:35, 6:40, 6:45. No sign of Mr. Morgan. Emily felt a sudden worry. In 3 years, he'd never been late, never missed a day, except for the occasional holidays when the diner was closed. His routine was as reliable as the sunrise. Maybe he's sick, she thought while pouring coffee for the truckers at table number 2. Maybe he'll be here tomorrow. But Wednesday came and went. Table number 4 stayed empty. By Thursday, Emily found herself absent-mindedly brewing a cup of coffee and setting it at his usual spot. Then, realizing what she was doing, the other waitresses noticed her distraction and thought it was silly. "Are you okay, Emily?" asked Rachel, the afternoon manager. "You keep staring at that empty table." "Just wondering about a regular customer. I haven't seen him in a few days." Rachel shrugged. Maybe he found somewhere cheaper, or perhaps he finally realized how odd it was to sit alone every morning for 3 years. But Emily knew it wasn't that simple. Something was wrong. After 3 years of routine, people don't just vanish without a reason. On Friday morning, the breakfast crowd was unusually slow. Emily was refilling the coffee pot when she heard the distinct rumble of a large vehicle pulling into the parking lot. Through the window, she saw a black SUV with government plates. 6 men stepped out, all in dark uniforms. They looked like Navy from the outside. They moved with the precision and discipline of active duty military, their expression serious but not hostile. The bell on the door jingled as they entered, and the morning chatter at the other tables died down to whispers. The sight of 6 uniformed servicemen walking into a small-town diner was anything but ordinary. The man leading the group was tall, likely in his 40s, with the bearing of someone used to command. He scanned the diner for a moment before spotting Emily. "Excuse me," he said, his tone respectful but formal. "You're Emily, right?" Emily's heart started racing. From her experience, men in uniform asking for your name was never good news. "Yes, I'm Emily Davis. Is everything okay?" The officer reached into his jacket and pulled out a small wooden box about the size of a jewelry case containing a carefully folded American flag. The sight made Emily's stomach turn. "Ma'am, I'm Commander Blake. We're here about Captain Henry Morgan. I believe you knew him as a customer here." Those words hit Emily like a punch. "Captain Carter, is that who he was?" "Yes, ma'am, Captain Carter passed away peacefully in his sleep that Monday evening." Emily felt tears welling up before she could even hold them back. "I'm sorry," she said, wiping her eyes on her apron. "I didn't even know his name was James." "He's just a customer, ma'am," Commander Blake interrupted gently. "Captain Carter left very specific instructions regarding his personal effects. He had no living relatives, no children, but he had left a will." The commander placed the flag-covered box on the nearest table. Emily could see a nameplate engraved, "Captain James T. Carter, United States Navy." Captain Carter served 32 years in the Navy. "Ma'am, he is a SEAL team commander serving in top-secret operations that I cannot disclose. He was awarded the Silver Star, 3 Bronze Stars, and 2 Purple Hearts. Emily stared at the box, trying to connect the image of the quiet, lonely man at table number 4 with the image of the decorated war hero being described to her. "He never mentioned it," she began. "No, ma'am, he didn't. Captain Carter was a Navy veteran, but in his final instructions he specifically requested that his personal effects be given to Emily, a waitress at a Route 17 diner, who had treated an old sailor with kindness, even though she had no reason to." The other customers in the diner fell completely silent, realizing that they were witnessing something important. Emily could feel their eyes on her, but all her attention was focused on the small box and what it symbolized. "Ma'am," one of the other SEALs spoke up, a young man with kind eyes. "Captain Carter had no family, but he spoke of this place of you. He said, you're the only one who looks at him like he's still worth anything." Emily was now sobbing, not caring who saw. "He is always polite and quiet. I was just trying to be nice to him." Commander Blake nodded. "That's exactly what he said she would say. He said to us, 'You may think you have done nothing special, but madam, to a man who has spent his last years almost alone, your kindness means a lot.' These are his personal belongings. There is also a letter he wrote, just for you and a few other things he wanted you to have." Emily's hand shook as she reached for the box. It was heavier than she thought, and warm as if it had been placed in the sunlight. "May I open it?" she asked. "Of course, ma'am, it's yours now." Had anyone ever walked silently beside her for a long time, only to find that they had left a complete void behind? Remember, if you believe that quiet kindness can change a whole life, and write your name below just one name, so we never forget those quiet moments. Emily's hand shook as she carefully opened the American flag draped over the wooden box. The 6 SEALs stood in respectful silence along with everyone else in the diner as she opened the lid. Inside, wrapped in soft black velvet, were a few items that told the story of a life she never knew. The first thing she saw was the gray handkerchief, the same handkerchief that had fallen to the floor the day she saw his initials. But now she could see it clearly. U.S. Navy Captain Henry T. Morgan, embroidered in navy blue thread with an anchor symbol and what looks like a SEAL trident. Underneath the handkerchief was an envelope with her name written in careful, precise handwriting for Emily Davis, who had been kind to a stranger. There was also a black and white photo that left Emily in awe. The photo shows her pouring coffee at table number 4 across the restaurant. In the back, barely visible, was Captain Carter sitting in his usual seat. Someone took this photo without her knowing, probably months ago. But what made her hold her breath was what was inside the box. A small velvet bag, when opened, reveals a bronze military medal with a blue ribbon and Purple Heart. Commander Blake noticed her staring at the medal. "Ma'am, that's one of 2 Purple Hearts Captain Carter received. He wants her to have it." "I can't," Emily began. "This should go to a museum or be reserved for the military." "Madam," said the young SEAL softly, "it belongs to the person who understands what service looks like. Captain Carter said that in the 3 years he has been here, he has never treated him as if he were a burden or an inconvenience. He said she treated him like he was someone important." Emily carefully opened the letter with trembling fingers. The handwriting is neat, but a little shaky with age. "Dear Emily, if you are reading this, I am gone, and these men found her as I requested. I hope you will forgive an old sailor like me for deceiving you by never telling you who I was. My name is James Thomas Carter. For 32 years, I served my country as a Navy SEAL. I have led people into impossible situations and somehow, by the grace of God, brought most of them home. I have received medals and awards that now sit in drawers meaningless without the men who achieved them with me. But for the last 3 years of my life, the most important part of my day wasn't any task I completed. It was walking into her diner at 6:30 in the morning and being greeted by someone who saw me as a person, not a problem. She never knew that I lived alone. There are days when her smile is the only human warmth I receive. She never knew that after my wife passed away 12 years ago, I forgot what it felt like to be treated with respect. She never asked about my limp, never commented on my silence, never made me feel like I was taking up space I didn't deserve. He just served me breakfast, filled my coffee cup, and said, "See you tomorrow, sir." Like you really mean it. I see you and the other customers too, Emily. I saw how you treated those muddy construction workers. You are very patient to spend so much time serving an elderly couple. You always have kind words for single mothers who have to take care of their children and try to sip a cup of coffee before going to work. Maybe you think what you do for me is nothing special, just your daily job. But I want you to know that your kindness has helped me through my darkest days. When I have nothing left to fight for, I have a reason to wake up. The certainty that at 6:30 in the morning, someone will be happy to see me. I have never had children, Emily. My wife and I have tried for years without success. When she passed away, I thought I would die alone and forgotten. Instead, I spent the last years of my life believing that somewhere in the world there was someone who had treated me well without expecting anything in return. The items in this box have no value in the conventional sense. This handkerchief belonged to my father, who served in World War II. The Purple Heart I received was in a place I cannot mention for reasons that are no longer important. This photo was taken by a friend of mine in the Navy because he wanted to see the woman I often talk about. I leave these to you not because you need them, but because they require someone who understands what service looks like. Every morning, when you come to work, when you treat every customer with respect, no matter how they treat you, you are serving others. You're making the world a little better, one cup at a time. In addition, my attorney will give you a separate envelope. I leave you a small amount of money, not enough to change your life dramatically, but enough to support your children's education or whatever you feel is important. Please don't refuse. This is the last plea of an old sailor. If anyone asks about me, please don't tell them about my medals or military service. Just tell them I'm the guy who sits at table number 4 every morning, and I've never asked for anything except to be treated like I belong somewhere. Thank you, Emily Davis, for giving me a place to belong. With deep gratitude and respect, Captain Henry T. Morgan, Carter, U.S. Navy, retired. As Emily finished reading, tears streamed down her face. The entire diner fell silent, sensing the seriousness of the moment. Commander Blake reached into his coat and pulled out another envelope. "Madam, this is a letter from Captain Carter's lawyer. As he had mentioned in his letter, he had left specific instructions regarding his possessions." Emily looked up at the 6 SEALs standing around her table. "Is he really as decorated as he says?" The young SEAL just finished speaking and stepped forward. "Ma'am, Captain Carter saved my uncle's life in Afghanistan in 2003. My uncle told me stories about him saying he was the kind of officer who would go through hell for his subordinates without ever asking for recognition. Captain Carter is a legend in the SEAL community, but towards the end of his life, ma'am, he became something of a recluse. Honestly, we were starting to worry about him. Then he started talking about this restaurant, about the kind waitress who treated him like family. What am I supposed to do with all this? Whatever you think Captain Carter wants you to do, Commander Blake replied. He trusted him with his last wishes, which meant he had complete confidence in her judgment. The next morning, Emily arrived early and placed a small framed photo on desk number 4, the photo of her pouring coffee with Captain Carter barely visible in the background. She also placed his gray handkerchief under the glass table along with a small sign that read, "Here he sits and never asks for anything but kindness." News spread around this small town faster than morning coffee. By afternoon, people Emily had never met before stopped by the diner, drawn by the story of the decorated Marine who had sat quietly at table number 4 for 3 years. But they didn't come with fanfare or cameras. They came with respect. An elderly woman came carrying a small bouquet of white flowers. "My husband served in the Navy," she said softly to Emily. "Different wars, different times, but I know how it feels when they come home and don't talk about what they saw." She placed the flowers on table number 4 and sat down at the booth across the street for 10 minutes, said nothing, then left a $5 tip and left. A middle-aged man in construction uniform walked in during lunch break. "I heard about the captain," he said. "I never knew who he was, but I remember seeing him here. I always wondered about his story." He ordered black coffee and sat at table number 4 in just enough time to have breakfast. Before leaving, he placed a small American flag pin next to the flowers. By the end of the week, table number 4 had become an unofficial memorial, not a place of sadness, but a place of quiet recognition. People brought coffee mugs from local VFW posts, military challenge coins, photos of loved ones who served. The diner's owner, Tom Benson, was initially concerned that the memorial might drive away regular customers. Instead, it seems to attract people not tourists or thrill seekers. But locals understand the significance of honoring someone who has served without seeking recognition. Emily finds herself becoming Captain Carter's unofficial memory keeper. People asked her about him, and she would tell them about his calm demeanor, his generous tips, and his respectful manner. She said he never complained about anything, never sent food back, never got impatient when we were busy. He just sits there, minds his business, and treats everyone with respect. A reporter from the local newspaper came here hoping to write a story about the secret war hero. Emily politely declined to be interviewed. Captain Carter died 3 years ago because no one asked him any questions. Captain Carter died 3 years ago because no one asked him any questions. "I won't start right now," she explained. Tom Benson made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. He officially renamed the area with table number 4, the quiet corner, and erected a small sign for those who preferred peace to conversation, preferred to be served, to be acknowledged. Other quiet customers began to pay attention to that area. Seniors want breakfast without rushing shift. Workers need coffee and quiet before going home. People going through tough times just need a place to sit without having to explain. Emily noticed that the conversations in the quiet corner seemed different, softer, and more respectful, as if Captain Carter's presence was still affecting that space. Every Monday morning, Emily continues the ritual she began. She would arrange the food on table number 4, pour a cup of black coffee, and let it sit for exactly the amount of time Captain Carter usually spent on his breakfast. Then she cleared the table and continued her work, but not forgetting to put her hand on the back of his chair and whisper, "See you tomorrow, sir." One Monday morning, a young Navy man on leave stopped by the diner. He had heard about Captain Carter from someone at the base and wanted to visit where the legendary SEAL spent his final years. He sat at table number 4, ordered 2 fried eggs, wheat toast, and black coffee. When Emily brought the bill, he left exactly $350 on the table. $850 for the meal and $5 tip folded into a perfect square, then placed under the edge of the napkin. "To Captain Carter," he said softly as he left. Emily smiled and added the folded bill to the small collection of mementos on the memorial table. She realized that there were traditions worth maintaining. Henry Morgan had no children, no siblings, and no family to mention his name on holidays or visit his grave on his birthday. But he had Emily, and through Emily, he made an entire town learn to remember. There are small acts of kindness that don't begin with words. They start with the way we look at a person, like they matter, like they deserve respect, like their presence brings something to this world instead of taking something away. Emily never knew that Captain Carter was a decorated war hero when she filled his coffee cup every morning. She never knew about the classified missions, the lives saved, or the decades of service that earned him a chest full of medals. She only knew that he seemed like a nice person and deserved to be treated with respect. And through that simple recognition of his humanity, Carter was able to leave behind something more valuable than military honor. Gratitude is expressed in the right place. The money Carter left Emily was enough to pay for her daughter's first year of college tuition and her son's dental expenses that insurance didn't cover. But more than that, it shows her that kindness is never wasted, even when it seems to disappear in silence. 3 years after Carter's death, this quiet corner has become a local institution. Veterans have come to it, but anyone needs a place to be without explanation or intrusion. Emily still worked the morning shift. She still greeted every customer with the same patience she had once shown Captain Carter, but now she understood something she had not before. Every person sitting alone at the table has a story. Every silent customer carries something. Every simple act of kindness means more than we think. On the wall behind table number 4, Tom Benson hung a simple wooden plaque with Captain Carter's own words from his letter. "Just tell them I'm the man who sits here every morning, and I've never asked for anything except to be treated like I belong somewhere." Below, Emily added in smaller letters, "And he really belongs here. We all belong here. Sign up if you believe some people don't need to speak up to deserve to be remembered." This is a story from QH Incredible Stories, where honor exists in the smallest moments.